Everybody, it's Professor Russo again. I just finished reading those people who submitted the outlines for the TV show analysis essay. As I was reading them, I saw that there was a lot of issues going on in those essays, some things that were going on really well and some things that I think we could probably use a little more work on. So I'm going to take this time to make us a short video to go over a couple of the most important things we need to think about when we're doing an analysis essay. So first thing I want us to look at, again, we're in the Unit 2 folder. What's going to be due this week is the actual analysis essay. Now that's 100 points, so that's a pretty big part of your grade. That's 10% of the grade. What's more is that this essay, the TV show analysis essay, is also going to be the type of essay you're going to be working with for the third and final essay, which is going to do some film analysis. The one we're going to be working on in the middle, the second essay in Unit 3, that one's an argument essay, but we've got these two analytical essays here. So let's scroll down and look at that assignment one more time. So what you're going to be trying to do is you are going to be creating a 750 to 1,000 word, so that is at least 3 double-spaced pages, and yes, I will be checking word count to 4 double-spaced pages approximately. That's what 750 to 1,000 works out to be. Analysis essay on the theme of gender in the family TV show you watched. So that's really important. We've got to look at these gender roles. A couple people turned in essays that were focused on arguments about gender or talked about something else that was happening in the show, about the economy, about what it was like to be popular or not popular. All really interesting themes, but one of the things we look at here in English 112 is the audience and the purpose. Are you answering the question? And this asks for this. So one thing to keep in mind that you're going to be doing is that you are going to really be looking at analyzing the character's representation of gender. That means making those claims about how do these characters represent or don't represent gender. So if we look at the sample thesis statement, this one was looking at just potentially one character. Lorelai in Gilmore Girls fulfills the stereotypical gender role of the mother. Okay, so picking one stereotypical role, mothering. However, she also goes against societal expectations by filling unconventional roles of father and peer. One potential claim. So now I want to point out that if you go down underneath where you would have to submit the assignment itself, I have now this video alongside the previous video, alongside my outline in progress. So that's in the first video. But now I've also got this sample student essay, and I want us to go through this together and talk about some of the strategies that are used. This was a student's essay that earned an A grade, a very high grade. I'll show you on the rubric what she got, and nothing's been changed, just the name. So let's take a look at it. All right. So this student has chosen to look at the TV show All in the Family. So I'm going to point out just from the very beginning a couple of good things she did. This is from last summer. We've got a broad summary of what's going on in the show to start off with. This would be another place in the introduction where you could have that broad summary, but another thing you could potentially do is put in some ideas about gender roles from the readings you've had. So some other things I want to note, we've got correct MLA style. The title of the whole show is in italics. But I want us to look at the thesis statement first, okay? I've broken this down into 2 colors. The object of analysis, the Bunker family members, that's what she's going to look at. So she chooses to look at more than one character. Again, up to you. You can do one character, you can do 2 characters. She does multiple. Represented in All in the Family. And here's the analytical claim. Portray the typical male and female gender roles of our society in the 1970s. So this is an older show, and she is saying that if you were to look at the society in that time, these characters do that. So I want to point something out here. If you look at this comment right here, I point out how she's doing what one should be doing. They are analyzing gender roles. So you're not just creating an argument about gender more generally, nor are you summarizing the show. Instead, you give us an object of analysis, the character or characters in the show, and a claim about what they mean or represent with regards to gender. Maybe that's typical, maybe it's atypical, maybe it's a little of both. One way that I think we can often think about gender is looking at it and saying, analysis can be thought to break down like this. You're making an argument about what someone else, i.e. a show's creator in this case, or later the author of a film. When we do the third essay, maybe if you take a literature class, it'll be the author of a book, is arguing. I sometimes find it useful to lean on some templates for analysis more generally. And so I've given you these where you could literally pop ideas in right here. In this name of the book or the TV show, the object of analysis represents, shows, or illuminates something. So even for this one, in the TV show, the character X and the character Y illustrate competing interpretations of gender stereotypes, with X representing many female stereotypes, while Y offers an alternative vision. So really, I don't know what shows you're all doing. I mean, I know the ones that you said you were going to do in the discussion board, but what I mean is that I haven't seen all those shows, or I don't know if I necessarily would agree with the same comments you make, and that's okay. What the analytical thesis does is it sets forth that claim, and then hopefully your body paragraphs are going to support that. So let's look at some things that the writer did next. First, we've got this really clear transition. To begin, perhaps these roles are most clearly visible in Archie. So we name the character, and we have an analytical claim that follows, who follows the stereotypical male gender role. As a father and husband, he's the leader and provider of the household. So in these two sentences, we've got a transition and a topic sentence, super clear. We know what the claim is she's making. Character Archie will show us typical male gender role, and that role is leader and provider. Now, I did some color coding down here on the body paragraph to show you another version for how you could look at breaking up this analytical claim. I like the acronym CIA to remember how to put together a good analytical body paragraph. C stands for context, or what's happening in the show, the film, or the text at the time. I is information. That's your textual film or your TV analysis, aka a quote or a detailed paraphrase of a scene. And then A is analysis. How and why that information helps advance the claim you made in your thesis about the text's overall message or meaning, and how that also advances the claim in the topic sentence. So in this case, remember, we're going to be looking at typical gender roles, specifically that Archie is being leader-provider. So let's look at how she does this. First, we've got the context, what's happening. Archie acts powerful in his role and quite often reflects bigotry in his actions, which was a cultural behavior of this era. And she cites one of our readings. In the episode, Gloria's boyfriend, George Bushmill, a bagger from the local grocery store, carries Gloria's bags home for her. George is mentally retarded, so we get that context, who these characters are. We've got one of the main characters of the show, and we've got a character who has some mental illness, mental difficulties. So we've got that context. Who are they? When George enters the living room with Gloria, Archie says hi to George. He talks to George in a louder voice, using a friendly tone and speaking slowly. Archie tells Michael this is how you need to speak to people like George. Archie then tells Michael, wait a minute, I'm going to learn him something. Archie tells George that he's planing down the door because it's too wide. He then asks George if he knows what a plane is and why he's shaving down the door. George tells Archie it is because the door doesn't fit. Archie tells him that he's right, continuing to speak slowly and more loudly. To this, George says to Archie, what are you shouting about, Mr. Bunker? So we've got all that information into this scene right there, okay? So she's given us all that detail. So even though I've never seen it, I can see what's going on. We've got Archie, who is somebody who, as she said, tends to be a bit stuck in his ways, bigoted actually, and so he sees somebody that's mentally different and assumes, oh, I have to speak to him in a different way. But of course the punchline is George is actually still quite intelligent and is confused as to why Mr. Bunker is treating him as if he is any different. So by itself, that would be a good start, but it still wouldn't be analysis without this green part. So let's look at that green part, what she does. Archie displays an ignorance towards George's ability to understand. In his actions, Archie is trying to project a dominance over George, which is a characteristic of the male gender. So now we know, why does this have anything to do with what's going on in the thesis? By itself, this could be an interesting scene, but if we don't explain that this is something, this idea about being dominant, this idea about thinking you're always right, being somehow characteristic of the male gender, which she took from our reading by Dr. Witt. So now we know why we're looking at this. Oh, Archie's choice to be somewhat ignorant, somewhat bigoted here, this is reflecting what would be a stereotype of male at the time. Archie also has a competitive nature with his son-in-law Michael. He often refers to Michael as Meathead. So again, we're looking at that competitive nature as being something that is also from the wit reading as being something typical to males. So again, that's the CIA. We've got what's going on, context at the time. We've got the specific information, so I can see this scene happening even though I've never seen this episode. And then we've got the analysis. What does this have to say about gender? We borrow an idea from one of our readings. And you'll note that it's all cited correctly. So that is MLA style for somebody that has a reading, so with wit. And then we've got the correct MLA style for the in-text citations. So I would encourage you to read this entire essay. Each paragraph keeps going forward with some really good stuff. And then if you look down, we've got a well done piece of works cited list as well, all in MLA style, besides a few small things. So you can also look at the rubric there. That's the same rubric you're going to be graded on, and that I'll be sending out in just a little bit. So I hope that helps you a bit, but I want to point to a couple other things you guys can look at. So again, we've got that. You can open it up yourself and read through the whole thing. If you go into general resources, there's a couple of things that I think are also really important, especially for those of you who I said, I don't really see you doing an analytical essay. Argument essay is what we're going to be doing next. For this essay, what you want to be looking at are things about analysis. And so these two things, summary versus analysis, if I said, I don't really see you doing analysis, or I pushed you to do a bit more, these two, summary versus analysis, again, they're in units and general resources. General resources are going to be really helpful for you. I have some topic sentences and how to integrate quotes effectively. I think they're going to help you a lot. Some sources that you guys can use. So I hope that helps you out a little bit. Again, don't forget you're actually going to be submitting the essay by Tuesday. Hope you guys have a good weekend, and keep in mind, I do indeed have those office hours. You're welcome to call in, but a conversation tends to be the best, so I prefer that. You either show up in person if you're local. If you're not local, give me a phone call. My number is right here on the sidebar under faculty information. You can find all that information right there. All right, so thank you so much, guys. Hope you enjoy writing the first essay.